What's up, guys? Nick M. Whittier here, back again. Gonna talk about MIOMRank again, as I didn't do any vlogs while it was actually coming out. So I want to talk about this time West Coast bias. So I got flamed a lot or whatever, got called out a lot for being a fraudulent member of the top 100 this year and last year, but I think maybe even more so this year, to be honest. And I'll be honest, I did not think I was going to be on the ranking for a number of reasons, but most of all because I didn't really do any, let's say, campaigning or promotion of my results, or yeah, I beat all these guys, or I made a really good run at this tournament, check it out, and then tweeting at people, or linking any sets where I dumpstered some notable players or whatever. And I definitely think that in 2016 for the 2017 rank, or for the 2016 rankings, for instance, I think Face Roll really benefited a lot from having somebody make him a combo video type thing of him on top 100 players to promote his results. So that was definitely a big reason why I didn't think I would be on it. Also, just that I pretty much get dumpstered whenever I play a top player on stream. So yeah, both those things. But really, I actually, at most tournaments, I had pretty decent results in terms of I would beat a few good people, and then I'd beat one or two good people, and then I would get destroyed by two good people, and I would get out about where you'd expect me or where I was seated. So I definitely had my lots of wins, though a bunch of them were over my, let's say, local rivals, but they weren't at locals per se. They were out of region. So I beat Azusa at Pat's house, Okami as well there, or Red Bull Gods and Gatekeepers. I got 4th in the Forsaken bracket, and I beat some pretty good people too. I beat Homemade Waffles, Kalamazoo, some other decent people too. And if you include locals that are not NorCal locals, but when I travel, I did quite well at a lot of those, and I think I definitely had enough wins over top 100 players to argue that I would be top 100. Anyway, so point aside, a lot of people still complain about West Coast bias. The funny thing about that is that Ralph, for instance, who was very high on MIOMRank in his debut, his ratings were much higher from the East Coast panelists than from the West Coast panelists. So West Coast bias is really East Coast having bias for the West Coast, which is pretty funny. And this year, if you look at the bottom of the ranks, there's really a lot of newcomers from Tri-State or whatever, from the Northeast, from even Eastern Canada. We got Moki and Legend from Quebec area or Montreal or wherever they are. I don't know, Kage land, somewhere up there. Maybe it's Ontario. I forget. I know my geography, but I just actually don't follow their local scene. And then from Tri-State, you have those other people like Dark Tooth, IBDW, Zealous 5000, a bunch of players from up there. And Jerry from MDVA, who, as far as I can tell, has never done anything at a national. But again, I didn't look at the results too closely, but it just did feel like a lot of these people, they have good wins. They're probably quite good, but I didn't feel like they, made big splashes at tournaments. One guy I actually think might have been a little bit underrated is Rick from Midwest, because he had a tournament a few months ago where he really went off, winning a pretty big Midwest regional over KJH and a bunch of other good people. So yeah, I felt like Rick could have been rated higher, and I know having played Rick that he's an excellent player. But yeah, I really don't think that there's any reason to think West Coast bias is actually a thing. Now, there is bias. The bias is notoriety bias, is a better way to think about it. So people who are more famous, who might not even be that good, will just get rated higher than maybe they should be. So West Coast has historically had more exposure, more popular streams than East Coast, and so with some of the players who do get overrated because of notoriety are definitely these players who are just more staple stream figures. However, that doesn't mean that the bias for these players has anything to do with like being on the West Coast, in terms of like there can also be bias against other West Coast players because they're not on stream much. Like I don't really know what his results were this year, but for instance, Psycho Midget, um, I'm actually I looked at the people on the ballot. Pretty sure he wasn't on the ballot, even though he had a really good run at Don't Park on the Grass. I think he got 5th at Red Bull Gods and Gatekeepers and beat like Squid and Face Roll. Yeah. So he beat over Triforce at Don't Park. I feel like just based on those 2 tournaments off the top of my head, that's like as good a resume as lots of other players. But like he's just not a staple player that you'll like see on stream or like that you hear much about. Even though, yeah, as far as I could tell, he had some quite good results. Because that's 2 nationals I listed right there. So if there's just one more where he did okay, then like that's probably enough results. So yeah, I really I don't want to call out names, but like the people who are more famous just get rated higher, right? That's kind of the way it's always been. And not to say that like MIOMRank should look at local PRs, but it's like very consistently true that the people who are rated higher on local PRs like get rated lower on MIOMRank, and it's not necessarily because of results. For instance, like Absent Page apparently just like always does better than Cal in Midwest or wherever the fuck they're from, and Absent Page was 1 below Cal, and so on and so on. I mean, obviously I could use examples from my own region, but I don't actually want to call anyone out. I'm not trying to blame anyone or whatever. It's just the way it is. So like, yeah, the people who like get hyped up by social media or from being on the stream and shit, they just get rated better than like people who might consistently clock in at 33rd, 49th, 65th at nationals. Those people never have any like big breakout matches on stream or whatever. No one really gives a shit about them. And yeah, I'm like, it should be pretty obvious. For instance, like to me, watching SFAT versus Rocky, I've seen them play. It's not like really a meaningful upset to me when Rocky beat SFAT, because I've like seen them play, I've played them, I know what they're good at, and like it just makes sense to me that Rocky could beat the SFAT. But to other people who like don't follow our local scene so much, like they're like, who the hell is this guy? Oh my god, how did he beat SFAT? Even though again he's actually had SFAT by the balls in like more than one set, and he's beaten Fat Goku, and he had like an epic game 5 with Cyrox. There's no way that like anybody should be really surprised about that stuff. Or same thing with Spark versus Westballs. Like Westballs is awful against Sheik on paper in terms of his results. Losing to Laudanus and a lot of other, having a really bad record against Swedish and other Sheiks. And Westballs gets upset a lot, right? Like the dude usually like naps at the venue and then gets like woken up for his pools matches, then wakes up and plays fucking awful, but just assumes he can steamroll the people earlier in the bracket because he doesn't like really consider them enough of a threat to like have clocked in and been in the zone yet at that point in the tournament. So like that's another example. Like, well, of course on paper it's like a really big win, right? Like Westballs is a real top player. Spark, just like a player kind of waiting for like a real breakout, and it happened, and it really shouldn't surprise anyone. But still, the result ends up like getting kind of blown out of proportion in terms of how like meaningful it is, just because there's a big disparity between the perceived levels of the players. So okay, I guess that's all I want to say about like notoriety bias. I will say a player that kind of confuses me a little bit in terms of their placing. I feel like Azusa is rated pretty high for not having a very good year. Last year he was rated 57, and he had a bunch of good wins over like Slox and Chillin and None. I don't really remember him making any really good runs this year. I mean, second at Red Bull Gods and Gatekeepers Forsaken bracket, that's really good, but like that was mostly the like C tier players like me and Psycho Midget and Squid and shit in that bracket. So like, even though it's a good result, like I didn't really beat that many people. So this surprises me that he's still rated. He only went down 2 ranks, because Azusa really isn't like he's a little bit of a sleeper player too, right? Like a lot of people don't even really like know who he is, even though he's again quite consistent. Because like yeah, he definitely just hasn't been in the public spotlight too much. So yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't drop more. But again, everyone knows Austin is good. So yeah, it's not like I think, it's not like I don't think he's at that level. But yeah, again, just kind of surprised me. And yeah, I guess I think I'm gonna end it there today. I'll still have more to say. I was meaning to talk about like the top 10 players this vlog, but I might actually say that even for after Genesis, I kind of want to think about what I have to say about that more, because like we all knew that Hungrybox was #1, but yeah. All right, so again, please click the follow button. I'll be trying to upload these every day, though we'll see if it actually ends up happening every day. Okay, peace out, guys.